A few weeks ago, I was joined by my friend Andres, and you might have seen that in my last video, where we actually spent an entire day going around many different zones of Guatemala City. The next part of the video that I said to be continued actually continues at the Railway Museum here in Guatemala City. It's located in Zone 1, and thank you to Andres for taking me there. Well, one of the things I learned while there was it's a museum for a reason. Passenger rail no longer exists in Guatemala. They used to have, going back to the late 1800s, they built these railway lines all across the country. Later in the early 1900s, the network of railway lines was inherited, if you will, or reinvested in by the United Fruit Company, and then that existed until about the 1950s. And then that got kind of discontinued for a while. It was revived in the 1990s, but it seemed like it was mostly for nostalgic purposes at that point. And then in the early to mid 2000s, they just really discontinued passenger rail service in Guatemala. And so part of the reason is rail is not really something very affordable or profitable. In fact, most rail in most places in the world is subsidized heavily by governments, and I guess this government here just said after a while we're not paying for this. There's just no point. Also, you got to think about it. There was the invention of the automobile in the 20th century, and there are a lot more roads now in Guatemala. Now, you might not think the roads are great compared to maybe some other countries, maybe like a place I live in the United States. Although there's some states in the United States where the roads aren't so great either, but they do have a lot of roads all over Guatemala, a lot of traffic too, and a lot of places to get around. It's not super easy to get around sometimes. Sometimes it's fine, depending on the traffic. But yeah, no passenger rail service. They are working on some other kind of commuter rail systems. Andres and I took the bus, the Transmetro, all day on that Saturday that we were out and about. And we walked around a lot as well between different areas. So you're going to see that a little bit. And then after we actually left the Railway Museum, we walked by the Postal Building. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that Postal Building is also just a museum now. It was not open for us to explore. But a few days later, I was actually asking some friends, hey, I want to mail some postcards to some friends and family in the United States. Where do I get stamps? Where's the nearest post office? Francisco, there's no post office. What? How do people mail things? And wait, why is there no post office? I want to just mail a postcard. They said, just send an email. What? And so I had a hard time getting this concept through. I thought maybe I'm not translating this right. But no, actually years ago, the Postal Service was also not profitable and just not fiscally solvent. So they actually then tried to privatize it, and then they had some challenges with some of the contracts with the privatized companies, I guess, and that just totally went out of business too. So now the only way to send mail or packages is through some international couriers or through companies like FedEx, UPS, and DHL. But like if you're going to send a postcard, you're not going to FedEx a postcard. I mean, that's unless you really want to spend a lot of money on that. So so for those of you, there might be a few of you that got a postcard from me. You probably won't get it until I get to the United States, and we'll just mail it from there. But I guess this was why I was having some issues finding actual postcards to buy too, is that probably not too many people are buying those. But anyway, I guess in a country where you really just don't want to just keep going into debt or bailing yourself out through maybe interest loans or through the Federal Reserve and things like that, you just don't have things that aren't profitable. That's my guess. And so there's other things besides rail. There's roads. People drive. Maybe you even want to take a flight somewhere. Also, a lot of people really don't leave their area as much as maybe you might in another state or country. So that's also a possibility. But anyway, found out some things here. No rail, no postal system. But let me tell you, if you want a really amazing experience, go to the Railway Museum. You get to see some really cool old trains, which we saw, and we got a great explanation. It was about an hour-long tour. We get to go and see and there's also a lot of other cool things there, not just the trains, but old typewriters and old phones and all sorts of cool old things, even film reels and everything. So a really great day. Thank you to my friend Andres for taking me to the Railway Museum and walking me around the city, where we also got to see some cool old buildings like the old post office building. And I guess we could just look back nostalgically here in Guatemala at trains, typewriters, postal systems, and feel like, where are we moving forward as a country here in Guatemala and as a world innovatively, and how are we transportation going to innovate? How are we going to communicate? Well, we do a lot of that in different ways now, including email. Like my friend said, just send an email, Francisco. You could send a video message too, right? You can get on YouTube. So that's what I guess we do when we just don't afford things. We do other things and provide a little bit more innovation. So this was my experience here in Guatemala City, and thank you for joining me. So we're entering the train station. Like everywhere else, they got to keep us safe. And a really cool mural, and this is also where a museum is. And let's see if I pass. Whew, just passed. This is where the first class passengers were on the train. This is the cafe car on the train. This is the presidential car. So one president at least was on this car, and that was Miguel Estrada. Perhaps he used this toilet. This particular train car had one of the presidents of Guatemala in 1908, Jose Maria Orellana. He actually was on this train car at one point. Looks pretty nice. So these trains right here were actually used by the United Fruit Company, which, a lot of the fruit that was gathered here is sort of sent off to the United States. This was, back many years ago now. These trains have been out of order for a little while. So this train was actually made in Canada. So this is a representation of the guy who would have to hit the brake on these trains. So this train was made by the General Electric Company, Erie, Pennsylvania. Sorry, this is the post office, and you obviously have a really nice, beautiful, huge Guatemalan flag draping over both sides, and you also have a nice emblem there that refers to the Day of Liberty, Independence Day, September 15th, 1821. That's what it says when you look really closely at the emblem.